Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. The interaction between the subject, the thought, and the object, the qualities, produces perception. So the interaction of these two, the interplay of these two makes it, and also makes it look real. Since it is making it real, we ask this fundamental question, why it appears that real? Why it appears real? It is appearing real not because it is inherently real. The reality is borrowed. It is a borrowed reality, not of its own. Exactly like the moonlight. The moon has no light inherent in it, unlike the sun. The moon is not having light of its own, but it is borrowed. The moon borrows the light from the sun and gives it out. But however, we do experience light coming from the moon. But we know for sure the moon is not having. What is the proof the moon is not having light? You can say in the daytime, there is no moonlight, sir. No. If that is the case, then stars also we are not seeing in the daytime. We are able to see the stars only in the night. So the stars are also having light of its own. It's a relative brightness, that's about it. But in the night itself, we see a moon having this waxing and waning stages. Slowly it is reducing and slowly it is increasing. So we understand the moon is not having anything inherent. There's no necessity for you to send a rocket and a man to land in the moon. See, this is not necessary for this conclusion. For this understanding, we don't need to go to moon. Sitting in our own place, you can identify that. Using your little application is enough. So this is how the scriptures analyzed it. Now, when the moon is not having inherent light, but we do experience light coming from the moon. How? There we say it is not from the moon itself. Then we say it is from somewhere else. In the example, we know the source. What is the source? We see the sun also. We know the sun. Therefore, we say the sun light is hitting on the moon and it is reflecting. But when you come to the concept, we are not able to define it exactly. But one thing for sure, the reality of that is not inherent. So the thought also doesn't carry the inherent reality. The qualities of the objects also doesn't carry that inherent reality. Then where is the reality? Then what is the nature of this is the next topic. Right? There we will be studying illusion, Maya. There he will explain. Okay, then what is the nature of this? So we say, for the initial stage, we take the thought as the subject relatively, then world as the object. interaction of these two happens. And then we say, what is subject, what is object, and all that we have seen. And now he says, it is not, when you remove the thought, you cannot say there is nothing. When you remove the qualities, you cannot say there is nothing. These are the 2 points you got to remember. First one, ascribing reality to it. Then, when you remove the qualities or when you remove the thought from the subject, is it nothing? It appears like that initially, but then we come to conclusion that no, it is not. So there is something. That something is what is referred as Brahman. And that something cannot be two different somethings. Because to say they are two different things, it is possible only with the property. Isn't it? A cow is different from a mule. How are you able to say that? There is something unique about the cow which is different from the mule. The properties of the mule is different from the properties of the cow. Now, if we have to come to conclusion, there is X behind the thought. Similarly, there is X behind the qualities of object. How we are going to distinguish this X is different from that X? You can distinguish only if you know the property. No? So, this nothing is different from that nothing. This zero is different from that zero. How can you say this zero different from that zero? This number different from that number is possible. Even if you call it as nothing, that's why we say it cannot be nothing. That's why first we establish it is not nothing. Then we come to an idea, is the two different something? We say, no, they are not two different something. If they are not two different something, then what is it? That you cannot comprehend. Why you cannot comprehend? All comprehensions fall under the purview of thought. No comprehension is possible without a thought. Now we are discussing about something which is behind it, beyond it, beneath it. Sometimes we call it as beyond, sometimes we call it as behind, sometimes we call it as beneath. Right? Whatever the case, anything that is away from that, you cannot use a thought to comprehend it. Therefore, the only way for us to understand that is what? Your thought cannot go and reach there and comprehend. If a thought cannot comprehend, with what are you going to comprehend? To which Vedanta comes and says, remember, this is swayamprakasha. You don't require a thought to understand it. There's no necessity. Exactly like, I give an example for that. Example is this. With the torchlight, alone you will be able to illumine all the objects. Right? Do you require another light to illumine the torchlight? There's a bulb that gives light, no, from the torch. Sir, with that light, I can see all other lights. to see this light, which light I have to use now? We say what? No. It is swayamprakasha. Same way, this something which is referred as brahman, or it is referred as the consciousness, pure consciousness, sakshi, etc., is swayamprakasha. It is self-illuminating. It is not dependent on something else to come and illuminate. This is what we saw in the last class. Another point we saw in the last class, I'm just recapping what we have seen in the last class. Another point we saw in the last class is why we are attributing Vedanta also a form of idealism. That also we saw. Because Vedanta speaks similar language to an idealist. Then we explain, no, it is not. Why it has to speak from the idealist language? It has to use more of that idealist's language. Why? Is because the conversation is happening with the subject. The whole reasoning, whole inquiry is happening from the subject's point of view. Since it is happening from the subject's point of view, we will be speaking the language of an idealist. But don't think we belong to that category. This is what we saw in the last class. Then we saw the equation, the mathematical equation for the world. What is a mathematical equation? TO1 plus TO2 plus TO3 plus QO1 plus QO2 plus QO3, etc., plus B. This is world. So anybody asks you, what is world? What is Jagat? They ask, give them this explanation. TO1 plus TO2 plus TO3, etc., plus QO1 plus QO2 plus QO3, etc., plus, don't say BO1 plus BO2 and all that. Plus B, that's all. Plus Brahman, that is the world. That's all it is. Okay. Now he has given the theory, he is giving few examples to elucidate the salient features of the theory. Right. Read those examples I have told you the last class to go through that once. Now you go through again now. We'll study that in the class now. We'll take the examples one by one and see each example throwing light on one aspect of the theory, making it more and more clearer and clearer. Slowly it will take you to the subtler layers of the theory. So that's why he gives 4 examples here. Right. Now we will read the examples. Yes. Yeah.
Page 302, second last paragraph. Thus, the Vedantic theory of perception states the phenomenon of the world is brought about by the reaction of the subject and object in the medium of Brahman. A few interesting illustrations given below help to further elucidate the theory. 1. 2 palms clapping produce sound. Either one of them on its own cannot. It is the play of both palms that does it. Similarly, the subject mind alone cannot produce the phenomenal world, nor the object world. It is the impact between the two that accounts for the perception of the world. 2. Electricity has a positive and a negative pole. Neither of them produces a spark. But when the two poles come in contact with each other, a spark is created, though electricity as such has no spark in it. Likewise, Brahman, the supreme reality, has no creation, no world in it. But when the two conditionings of Brahman come together, there sparks off the phenomenal world. Brahman conditioned by thought becomes the subject mind. Conditioned by quality becomes the object world. The subject and object are like the two poles of electricity. When they come together, there arises the perception of the world. 3. The ocean is a vast sheet of still water below with the waves on the surface. The water below is calm, whereas the waves on top are ever disturbed. They produce ripples and bubbles, froth and foam all over the surface. Notwithstanding the varied expression, it is water and water alone. The sheet below, the waves, the ripples and bubbles, the froth and foam. The different manifestations are brought about by the collision of waves. One wave is like thought of the subject mind, and the other like quality of the object world. When these two impinge, there arises the disturbed water, the phenomenal world. Brahman is likened to water in the ocean, one wave to the subject, another to the object. When the waves clash, there arises the varied expression of water. Similarly, the clash of the subject and object produces the phenomenal world. However, Brahman remains the same, changeless. Reality before and after the world emerges, just as water remains as water in and through all its expressions. 4. The world projected upon Brahman is like a pattern of cloth woven from cotton. The pattern is made up of the warp and woof. The warp and woof are like the subject mind and the object world. The combination makes the pattern, produces the phenomenal world. Just as cotton pervades the warp and woof, the entire pattern, so does Brahman pervade everything, everywhere. Thus, Brahman remains ever the one supreme reality, absolute, immaculate, unaffected by the projection of the world upon it. Brahman is like space. Space cannot be conditioned, limited, divided. Yet it is referred to as pot space, room space, inside space, outside space, etc. Nevertheless, space is one indivisible, all-pervading entity, not subject to division. Brahman transcends even the subtlety of space. It is ever the illimitable, indivisible, infinite reality. That reality is yourself, your Atman. Realize that. You will then realize the illusory nature of the world and rise above it. Become the supreme reality.
So he's giving these 4 examples. The first one he gives to explain the theory of perception. He gives 4 examples. Then the space example is given for another idea. Okay. Otherwise, you could have added that also here, not possible, because the pot example is given for next idea. He is just leading us to the next chapter, just telescoping it to the next. So he is giving a clue. Next, what is going to be analyzed. So first, these 4 examples we see. Examples wise, there is no big complications. Very simple, that is. Examples, there's no problem at all. You can just read through and understand. But then when you're reading those examples, you need to keep in mind why he has to give 4 examples for it. Isn't it just that one example of the world projected upon Brahman is like pattern of cloth? is enough. Why there are 4 examples? Because the whole book is a condensation. He is condensing a lot of ideas and compressing and giving. In that compression, to spend more time on giving examples instead of ideas. You see, we don't find such is the case usually when the author is writing a book. Why? With that, when you look back those examples, we understand these examples are fine, explaining a particular facet, one aspect about the theory of perception. If you have understood the theory of perception, you can appreciate these examples from how it is graduating, how it is moving from simple to the complex idea. The first example is the very simple idea. It is not possible to produce sound without 2 hands clapping. With 1 hand, no sound will come. Don't say, in Zen Kohen, they talk about 1 hand clapping. No. Remember, for Zen Kohens, there is no answer. Okay. For any one of those Zen Kohens, you will not find answer. If you find answer, then it is not a Zen Kohen at all, actually. If you go back to the Zen master and tell him, this is the answer for your 1 hand clapping, he will give 1 back to you and say, go back. Wrong answer, he will say. There is no way that you can, you go and ask. It's like you go and ask a question to Ramana. Ramana will turn back and ask you, who is the questioner? Find out. Right. Finished. Now, you go back to the origin of the question. Question. You finally land in the questioner. From the questioner only question has come. Now he says, find the origin of the questioner. What is the starting point of the questioner? Go back to the source of your thought. From there you start inquiry. You go into the source of the thought where are you going to land? After that, you will not go back to Ramana and tell him, this is the source of the question. You see, remember, anytime you go back with an answer to a guru's question, you can be 200% sure you are having a wrong answer. So don't say Kohen, Zen Kohen says, no sir, there is a thing called 1 hand clapping. There is no such thing called 1 hand clapping. Then why he gave that? That is a way of teaching of those people. Right? Now each one have got their own style of teaching and guiding, leading, isn't it? Now you can't say everyone should be speaking the same language, same manner. Not possible. Each one will have their own ways, right? There they talk about it. As a common man, we know one thing. What does it say? You need 2 hands to produce sound. That's why we say, if there is a fight, remember, both the parties are at fault. It is impossible that I am all that correct, sir, only the other person is wrong. This is a stand we take. That's why when you go to a master, he will never say the other party's mistakes. He will always talk about your mistakes. And all of us will expect what? We expect the teacher, the guru. This is the difference between a guru and a counselor. Now, many of us thought, you need a psychological counselor for us. to put it in a very simple language, every one of us should have a family psychiatrist. So to have your family psychiatrist is what these masters in those days said. You have a kula guru. Kula guru will not do what the psychiatrist is doing, therapist is doing. You go to a therapist will never say where you are at fault. Guru, anytime you go, he will always say, it is your fault. What is your fault? Is there. Whether I move or not. See or no. It comes and hits, makes sound. If I am not there, nothing happens. As simple as that. You are in the wrong place in the wrong time. Why am I in the wrong place in the wrong time, sir? Right. Right in front of me it happened. Just coming to park the car. I was somebody just coming. I was about to park. As I was about to park, just about 3 seconds before me, I'm seeing the branch, the tree falling. It's just a matter of 3 seconds. That is just falling. I could see that. Fortunately, it's a tall, the coconut tree. So that I got extra 1 second. You may say extra 1 second, is it a big thing? Yes, it is a big thing. You should ask the cricketer, the batsman. If he has extra that fraction of a second, is where the great batsmen and ordinary batsmen differences. Fraction of a second they have. Little extra time they have to play that stroke. That's where the difference is. What is that you call it? Go back to the previous chapter. Why I am there? Not accident, remember. Is there. Sir, I parked the car. After I parked the car, it fell. Fortunately, I got out of the car. Another fellow says, sir, I got into the car. That is the time it fell. Now, timing, who, coconut tree is not going to be standing there and watching you. Hey, are you coming? You're not coming and all that. It's just falling. Full stop. What is that now? I have not moved, sir. I am there. The fact that you are there, sound will come. All this is just for the example, but that's not the point of theory of perception, please. In theory of perception, he says, unless these two things come and meet, there is no possibility of sound. Therefore, first we establish you need the participation of the subject. Also, you need the participation of the object. Perceiver is needed and the perceived is needed. These two have to meet. If perennially perceiver is not making any movement, imagine these two are here. Both are not moving, let's say. That's why I gave the example. Okay, clapping sound to get. One can be stationary, even if another one moves, there is a sound. Another example. This is how you have to read those examples. That's why I said these examples are important. Now, remembering the concept would be far more difficult. But remember, the example is easy. That's why he gives more examples for us. So what is that we saw there? Both have to move. Then we had one doubt. Sir, subject is inside. Object is outside. Imagine both are simply standing. Will there be sound? Not possible. Mind is simply standing inside and the object is simply standing outside. There is no possibility of perception. So for a perception to happen, what is needed? Either the subject has to go out or the object has to come inside, or both of them should move. This is the first point. Example number 1. Right. Now we go to the second example. Sir, what is this? Electricity has a positive and a negative pole. Straight away, I'm sure you should be able to appreciate the different ideas. What is it? Essentially, electricity is same, but then there is a slight difference. Positive pole, positively charged, and negatively charged. That is the electricity we say. What is it? Quality of flower as a thought in me, the qualities of the flower in the flower. So the thought of the flower is in one side, which is different. In the clap example, what is it? Both are same. Same hand. Hand. This is the example. Now here he is coming to a slightly different angle here. What is the extra feature you're adding here? Another feature is, see, they are not absolutely same. There is similarity. At the same time, there is a difference of angle. What is it? One is positively charged, one is negatively charged. The thought of the flower means the quality of the flower. As a thought sitting in me, similarly, qualities of the flower sitting as a flower outside. Is there, it's here. When these two things meet, there is a spark. Positively charged and negatively charged. There is a spark. That spark is a perception, a flash that comes. You say, yeah, correct. It is same? No, it is similar. Slightly angle difference is there. Thought and the qualities of object. Correct, sir. Second example. Now we move to the third example. What is the third example? Little detail is there. Of course, these examples have been used for other things also. Like the clapping. We use this example to explain the relationship problems that we keep complaining all the time. For that also we use the same example, but here the example has a different angle. Same way, the example is used here is the vast sheet of ocean, and then there is a waves. There are waves. Now what is he doing? Now he is introducing the third element of our perception. First two examples gave only subject object. The substratum is not there at all. Okay. In the third example only, the substratum gets introduced. So third example, he says, don't think they are functioning independently when there is a substratum. There is a base. There is a foundation. What is a foundation? The ocean is the foundation. And then the waves come. And the waves collide. There is a ripples and bubbles. Those things is what we call as perception. That bubble that we are experiencing is what is referred as the perception. So here, wave 1, wave 2. Are they two different things? No. Are they in two different? Are they opposing factors? No. Are they two waves are not coming? One wave coming from this side, another wave coming from this side in the ocean. We see both the waves coming from there only, rolling over. Within itself, it rolls over and meets there is a froth. And then it comes and hits the shore. There it is concluding, but the froth is not coming only from the shore hitting. It is a wave itself. So they are not two opposing, because the first two examples can give us an idea. What is always right through your discussion about theory of perception, we are always discussing subject, object, isn't it? The direction is what? Subject is moving from this direction, object is moving from that direction. Subject is coming from here, object is coming from here. There is a meeting point. The wave examples dismisses that. He says, no, 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 no. Don't think they are warring elements. Both of them are moving together only. Now we get really confused. If you say both of them moving together, how is it, sir? That's where this subject and object both are not they are not having any existence of its own. Factually, the wave is also ocean. Wave 1 is ocean. Wave 2, which we call as object, ocean. The subject, ocean. Subject wave is ocean. Object wave is ocean. The froth that has come out is also ocean. And is this alone ocean, sir? No, no, no. Ocean is far, far beyond that also. That's what he explains in the 15th chapter of the Gita. Uttama Purusha says. There is another one man. One is perishable. Another one is imperishable. And beyond the perishable and the imperishable, there is another one, he says. Uttama Purusha Stvanya says. That is different. Ocean is part of the froth. In fact, you can't even say part. It is ocean. Isn't it? It is there. Same way, you say the perception, which is a product, the meeting the subject and objects, which are the ingredients, and the substratum. All three is what? The same thing. Yes, correct. But then again, there is one problem is still pending. Even here, there is a problem. What is a problem? In all the three examples, there is one problem. Constant. What is it? Clash. There is a clash. Yeah, unless there is a clash, there is no possibility of this happening. Now he has to remove, as though they are fighting. As though there is a war. No, no, no. There's no war or anything, please. There's nothing warring or anything. It is a fantastic beauty. It is a wonderment. It is silent. All this is happening so quiet, so quiet. It's fascinating to observe how the perception is happening. So quiet. So many operations. First time, Swamiji gave that article. He gave few articles to us to read. when we are doing the course. I think it's still there to the students. The Science Journal article. He says, by the time to register, you register a site, not going into the interpretations and all that. To register a site, he says, there are 1 million calculations happen. One site, one registration. Door, 1 million calculation done. This is only with reference to the eyes. How much calculations has to be done? How much happens with reference to hearing, smelling, tasting? All this is happening. How? So silent. Quietly it is happening. Otherwise, you think it has a constant fight. There is a war that is happening between the subject and the object. No, it happens with such grace, such grace. To what extent? Such a quiet one. That's why he gives the example of the cotton thread cloth. It is the same thread. The thread is not two different threads. Isn't it? It's the same thread, same cotton. Cotton is same, the thread is same. Out of that, you make a cloth. Isn't it? And you go on weaving it. How do you weave? He says that's what these patterns are all made up of. What is it? The warp and woof of the way. The direction in which it is going. That's about it. It just goes on top, and that this, that, it just meets. It's just a meeting point. And they meet so close, so close, so close, and so tight. There is a solidarity for it. If you magnify that, you will see a tremendous gap between this. That's why this nowadays, they say you need to have 3-layered mask. 1 layer is not enough. So when you go to cold weather places, they say instead of wearing 1 thick material, wear 2 thin materials. That will help you. That's why Westerners were having layers. And then first you put one and then on top of that you put 1 shirt, and then on top of that you put 1 overcoat, and then you top of that you wear one thing and walk out. Why you got to wear so many layers? There is a gap. But how it appears is, it appears as though there is no. Similarly, we see continuous perception. The solidarity of the world is experienced by us. But still, nature gives us the scope in the gaps. In the gaps, you see the reality. There's an empty space. And now we can give examples for this. Now we can give for a better, other examples can be added depending upon our imagination and all that. Like when you see a fan moving, you see as though there is no space. But is there no space? From this, you can go to quantum mechanics. If you have knowledge of science, you can go up to quantum mechanics and say, what you are seeing as a wall is not a wall actually. There is a lot of gaps. Tremendous gaps are there in between. But the atoms there were moving at such a rapid speed, it looks solid for us. That's all. We don't have to worry about all that. You don't need to study quantum mechanics for this idea. See, all these things. That's why it's easy to study Vedanta. There's no necessity for, that's why Vedanta doesn't care about advancement of science. How much ever you go advance in science, you are going to be repeating the same thing. Only difference is going to be what? To talk advanced science, you will get more students to listen. Believing as though I know science. Not because you know science. Based on your ignorance only, I try. Vedanta says, why all waste of time? Take what you experience. Don't take some technical understanding of some topic, some subject. Based on that, you cannot arrive at a Sanatana Dharma. And your day-to-day experience is much more than necessity. You don't need some extraordinary technical knowledge of the science of the world. What you experience is more than sufficient, it says. So that's how the teachings will go. So then he moves to the totally different idea, the pot, space, and total space. Now remember, these are the words we will be using. Certain things will come as we move into the next topics. Few examples will come. And particularly when you go to the next topic, we will be stuck with one example. Right? Rajju Sarpa. Rajju Sarpana people will not know, but they'll know that the moment I say rope and snake. I don't know for how many weeks we are going to be getting stuck with this rope, snake, rope, snake, and a point will come where, when somebody asks you to get the rope, you will be scared to go and touch the rope. You get stuck. Another very popular examples in the scriptures is the pot space and the total space. A space is indivisible. The walls of the pot are not dividing space, but for our discussion purpose, for our transaction purpose, we say pot space, total space, room space, and carpet area, total built up area. All that is necessary for us to calculate. But factually, can the space be divided? What is the proof? What is the proof? On what basis we say space cannot be divided? You say if a space is divided already, you cannot demolish the building and rebuild. Isn't it? Put up a flyover, you put up a, nowadays they all this, big real estate people, they do it. They get a contract with the small, building. There are only about, 20 flats are there. And these people say, sir, you give me the flats, I will reconstruct there. I will give you back a flat. A new flat I'll give you. And I will take care of your rented accommodation for another 3 years till we construct this. So you don't have to pay rent or anything. We will pay the rent on your behalf for the next 3 years or 4 years, whatever the terms are. I will pull down the entire building and put up. You will say, now I'm going to put 15 floors. 15 floors I will put up. What is your problem? Now you are going to get your flat back, your space back. Your house is there. Also, you don't have to worry about your accommodations and all that. It's a win-win situation for us. Then all those 10, 15 fellows or 20 fellows, 30 fellows come together and they sign a contract. If a space is already divided in that particular fashion, like a cake, you divide a cake, no. If the cake is already divided, how can you create a new division there? A new division always will be smaller than the previous division, yes or no? If the division is real. It's not happening, no, in the space. We are able to put up. That means what? Was it ever divided? It's never divided. That's how we derive. If it is divided like how we cut the cake, divide the cake, next division is possible. Further division means new reorganizing means it has to be a smaller piece. You cannot make a bigger piece. Or else you have to join two cakes. I have to bring your cake and I have to take my cake and I have to join those two cakes first and then divide. Are we putting any effort to join space? No. Therefore, we come to conclusion, a space cannot be divided. Now remember, this is how Vedanta will go. Vedanta will not, even though it may look like a common sense thinking for most of us. Common sense it is, no, sir, space cannot be divided, no. Yeah, why? On what basis you say space cannot be divided? Nah, we start stumbling. Oh my God, I don't, yeah, but we start going through, we will not be able to put across our answers. That is how the teachings happens here in Vedanta. Vedanta teachings, there is a structure it has. It moves through a particular structure. Vedantic teaching moves through a structure. Now, without a structure, if you are going to be studying, you are in trouble. The teachings. What is a structure? First thing Vedanta will ask, what is the agenda? Like any subject you study, what is the scope of the subject? They ask, isn't it? What is the scope of economics? What is the purpose? Without establishing what is the uddesha, purpose, no inquiry, no study, no teaching can be done. So what is the uddesha of Vedanta? Essentially, the purpose is to establish that reality. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. This is the one statement. First thing, we have to establish what is the uddesha. It says that's the first thing you would have seen in the chapter also. Vedanta treatise. First chapter, Introduction to Vedanta. What is it, sir? It is to introduce yourself to yourself. What is your real nature? What is the nature of the world? What is the nature of the individual? What is the relationship between the individual and the world? Etc. This is the purpose of it. Now, without understanding the purpose of it, there is no way. That's why this essence of Vedanta, we started with what? Positive religion and negative religion. Going through the purpose. What is the purpose of it? The purpose is this. Then what has to be done? Immediately, technical teaching of Vedanta starts with, okay, now define the terms. Brahma, Satyam, Jagan, Mithyam. Then comes other. Now we'll say, okay, we will leave the next part of it as of now. And then Jiva Brahmaiva na paraha, na apara. Nothing else. Brahman is Satyam. Now there is no translation. Now there's no point in, Brahman is reality. Allah, Satyam is more than reality. Brahman alone, truth. So we just say what? Brahman alone. Then Jagat, world. Now when we say world, what are you going to say world now? World means what? We say world means we have studied world. In two chapters we have studied world. What is it? World means cause and effect. First thing. Then we studied what is world. This is the Lakshana. We have studied the next stage is to go for that Lakshana definition. You got to define what is it. First, you got to explain the purpose, Uddesha. Second one is Lakshana. Then we ask the question, Lakshana means explaining what is it, defining it. Define what is it. And remember, the definition should be complete. Isn't it? A definition cannot be an incomplete one. There we give very many definitions. For Brahman, we give some definition. How Brahman is defined. Tatastha Lakshana, Swarupa Lakshana, etc. One way. These are all different ways. Like, we say, Brahman. What is Brahman, sir? Prajnanam Brahma. That's what it is. What is Brahman? Prajnanam Brahma. I'm not going to be explaining all the terms. It's all coming later, okay? So now you just have to understand how we move in studying Vedanta. Even though he's not mentioning these terms, many people think, it is some new way of presenting Vedanta. He's not giving anything new. He is following the traditional system. He's not moving away from tradition. Many people think, read this book and say, is a modern Vedanta scholar. There is no such thing called modern Vedanta. Remember, Vedanta itself is tradition. Right? In that, what is modern? What is only way modern means what? It is presented in a contemporary language. It is presented in the language that we know today. Because we are not able to understand that language in which we have been presented these ideas. So here we say, what is this? A Lakshana should be, definition should be perfect, complete. There should not be any lacunas in that. There cannot be having any incompleteness to it. Like you ask a person to give an explanation of what is a cow? Define a cow. This is what Shastra asks. It asks. Now we are not asking immediately, okay, define something which is, some vague term. Neurons. Define neurons. How do we know? What is the definition of neurons? By doing that definition, there is no way that you can go back and verify also. So for us, what is the purpose now? The purpose right now, the discussion is, how are we to understand the Lakshana? Definition. How do you understand a definition? Definition means it should be complete. Cannot be a definition like what we studied in economics. What is money? Money means what money does. This is one of the definitions. Huh? Of course, it is the only thing I had remembered. Economics, even though I studied economics for 3 years, nothing I remember in that. Only thing I remember is money means what money does. I said, in a definition, he says, that's a definition. Is it complete? No, it's not complete. Then, how a definition should be? You should be presenting what is the unique factor about what you are attempting to define. Isn't it? That's where the scriptures give the example of a cow. How will you define a cow? If you say cow is that which gives milk, camel also gives milk, goat also gives milk, out. 4 legs. Tiger also has 4 legs. Then how you say horns? 2 horns. If you say 1 horn, then you can say rhinoceros. No, sir, it has 2 horns. Bull also has 2 horns. This also has 2. Then how will you define? How will you define? And you can't go on giving huge sentence. Like sometimes, for economics, they give, definitions, huge ones, it'll run to pages. No, it is not that also. Then what is it? They say, animal that has 4 legs, it has 2 horns. Also, it has the skin hanging down loosely. Goffling or something they say. Dollar or dofflaw. The skin hanging. Animal that has that is called a cow. Go. How do you define that? That which has this is cow. Same way, you have to define what is Brahman, what is Satyam, what is Jagat, what is Nitya. You have to define each term. Without defining those terms, and when you are defining the term, what they will do? Your terms, your lakshana will be tested. Pariksha. That will be examined. You can't say just give a definition and move, like we saw in the case of cow. You give the example, cow defined as what? That gives milk, that which gives milk. If you say, immediately it will be put under test. Pariksha. What is a pariksha? What about goat then? Goat also gives milk, no? Then what is the difference? Then we say this is not. So the same definition that you are giving will be tested. So now what has to be done? You have to fix the purpose, uddesha. Next one, we need to go for the lakshana. In that lakshana, we saw 2 chapters. What is the lakshana of the world? Perception and causation. This causation led us to perception. With that, we have covered this idea of Jagat. This is world. We fixed it. Why he started from the world point of view, even though it is Brahma Satyam Jagat Nitya. If this is how we have to go, first we should have started with Brahman, no? Why start some in between? That's why we saw the earlier basic principle of education is to move from known to the unknown. So what is known to us today in these 4 words? One word is known to us. Brahma, we don't know. Satyam, we don't say, sir, I don't know any one of those words because that's in Sanskrit. Okay. Like that old lady went to this, of the ophthalmologist. He keeps writing, what is this? What is this? What is? Finally, she says, I don't know how to read and write. You're asking me, what is this? How do I know? Don't say that, please. The words you need to get. That's why we are giving it in Sanskrit, because that is there in Sanskrit. I'm just using that same. Because there is no, a justified translation for those words, in fact. Full translation we cannot find. You can say reality, but it's not. It's more than that. The truth, more than that. It is inclusive of that, inclusive of that. It includes. Like in law, they give the definitions, It includes. That's how the starting will be in law. Law definition, you see. What is a house? Income tax law, you see. What is a house? It includes this, it will say. Why that word includes is there? Because tomorrow, from technology may come about or something you will create. And then you will say, I will not pay property tax. Right? So for them to facilitate that amendment possibilities, they add the word this includes. The same way, in this translations, we have to add this word. This includes. Some words are non-translatable. There is a list. One of the person has done a research. Non-translatables. Possible to translate it. List he made. These words cannot be translated into this. Tapas. Tapas, how do you translate? Austerity. It is more than that. Something more we say. So first thing, what you need to do is to move from known to unknown. In these 4 terms, what is known is Jagat. Now he has finished what is Jagat. The analysis of Jagat is done with these 2 chapters. Primary analysis and technical analysis. Primary analysis is cause and effect, law of causation chapter. Technical analysis is theory of perception. So what is this? Now Jagat is fixed. What is Jagat? Jagat means this equation we have understood. Jagat means what now? What is known to us? What is known? What is experienced by us? The experienced is the world. Is what we call as the world. Now he is moving on to the next word. Analysis is starting. The next word analysis is this, the illusion, Maya. More technical term is Mithya. Right. This Maya is what is referred as Mithya. Or the Mithya is what is going to be explained as Maya here. Right. So why he is using the word Maya instead of Mithya? Even though illusions is not a direct this one. Why? Because the word Maya is far more popular than the word Mithya. The moment you say Mithya, we will not even understand what is it. So now he is going to the analysis of what is illusion, Mithya. So this is how the progression is. We are only explaining what is a progression of thought. And many people reading this book get into this belief. This is some modern way of doing. No, he is very orthodox and traditional. Right? Only difference is what? Barest minimum of Sanskrit words. That's all. You see, that's all the differences. The only difference you will find is barest minimum. That's why suddenly when we touch these topics, I will be using little more of Sanskrit words. Only to make you understand that we are not moving away from tradition. Right? It is the traditional way of teaching. What is a traditional way? This is the 3 steps of traditional way. Uddesha, then you move to Lakshana, then you move to Pariksha. You test the Lakshana. You don't test the Uddesha, remember. Pariksha is done, not the Uddesha. Right? Uddesha is established. What is the purpose? Agenda is fixed. What I'm going to explain? I'm going to explain Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. And then Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. This is the complete one. But the first 2 are very popular. Right. So here, what is he doing? He is taking Jagat first and explained. Explained with understanding of these 2 chapters. Causation, this. What is the difference in causation and this? Causation is a very primary analysis. And this is a technical analysis. Fundamental and technical. Like in the stock market, they do know. There are 2 types of analysis, they say. Fundamental analysis and technical analysis. Same way here. There are 2 types of analysis. One is fundamental, law of causation, technical, this. And now he is moving to the next word. The moment you move to the next word, again you have to go back to the basic steps only. What are the steps? Lakshana and then Pariksha. Lakshana, Pariksha. Of course, the text is not moving in that same fashion of Lakshana, Pariksha and all that. That's not the way it is done there. But you need to get a taste of it. You should know that's what we are doing. That's why I'm just referring it. So more formal introduction to the chapter. I have not introduced the chapter Maya. Okay. It's only moving from perception to Maya. Why this movement? Why suddenly from perception, some topic, to suddenly jumping to some topic? You see, that's not the style of the text. All the chapters have been leading. Every chapter leads to the next chapter. Every chapter is leading to the next chapter. The way in which it is leading, we may not be able to recognize. That's all I'm explaining. I explained how the chapter leads to the next thought. Because directly you can't make a link between these 2 thoughts. What is the link? This is the link. Right. See you in the next class.